Hi, everybody. This is Skeptarchy. I am one of your hosts, Eric.
I am Kevin.
I'm Del.
And I'm Corey.
And together we are uncoordinated.
Yes.
But we try.
We'll figure this out eventually.
Mm-hmm.
You keep saying that.
I've been away for a little while. Digging a tunnel underneath the bunker, so that took most of my time.
Yeah, we got to get the Antifas down to the U.S. there so they can take over.
Right. I'm also waiting for my check from Soros to fund my my soup can ammunition stock.
Yeah, for such a rich guy, he's awfully slow with them checks.
I'd say so. Yeah. So the blaringly obvious in the news, I guess, and you guys have met a couple times since I've been here, but has been the Capitol storm.
Yeah, that did happen after our last record, so...
Yeah.
Insurrection!
Yeah.
Right.
Call it what you want.
Yeah, it's, I was really interested to hear one take on it, which was that apparently before 9/11, there were actually a lot of movies and a lot of situations in which we laughed at Islamic radical terrorists because they were just not very good at it. Like they made a lot of stupid mistakes. And they were often like a punchline in movies. And then as soon as 9/11 happened, it wasn't funny to joke about Islamic terrorism anymore, right? So it was just sort of a reminder that a lot of things about what happened were pretty funny, and we should point out how poorly done some of this was, but that doesn't mean that they won't get smarter next time.
Entirely fair, man.
Yeah, I don't really know what level of fear to have about this because, on one hand, it kind of viewed like unorganized buffoonery. But then on the other hand, there's reports of, people flashing badges to get in there and, there being perhaps policemen and stuff like that involved in that march. So like that ups it in my mind, right?
I mean, it's been pretty much confirmed from multiple sources at this point that there were several off-duty police officers from around the country who were who were part of that, part of the Capitol invasion, attack, failed coup, whatever you want to call it. And they're actually getting turned in by fellow officers, which is unusual.
Yeah, there's been a number of, I've seen a number of interviews with police officers shared in which, like one guy was saying, it was my absolute pleasure to crush a white nationalist uprising. I'd do that for free or something like that. And everyone was cheering him on. But I did kind of wonder, in 6 months, if we check up on that guy, is he going to have been run out of the force or, is he saying this for the camera? I don't, because we know for a fact that there are significant white nationalist presences in most police departments. That's a fact. So it's interesting to see. It just really messes with a lot of dynamics, the way this went down.
It didn't look like highly organized, but I don't know, it looked a little too easy, like with some of the barriers being moved and kind of a shoulder shrug attitude taken towards, keeping them out of there, right?
I think the real secret is how unprepared they were because, I don't know if has anybody here been to DC? Maybe Kevin? Have you been to DC ever?
I've been to DC, yeah.
I have not. No.
There are protests in DC, almost every day. There are people hosting protests almost every day.
There are pretty much people with signs protesting outside the White House gates, or the fence that can see into the White House across the big oval lawn, 24/7 basically.
Yeah, and on weekends, there are regularly protests with hundreds or thousands of people that have an armed police presence to meet them. A demonstration with thousands of people, even almost as big as the one that they saw down there, is like a monthly occurrence. This is not something that the Capitol Police are not equipped to handle when they have advance notice, which they did, I mean, they may not have known that they were going to march to that building, but like they knew there was going to be a giant rally. It is, there were reports that I haven't confirmed, but there were reports that on a regular weekend, they arrest like a couple hundred people for just sitting on those stairs. And they arrested 12 people on the actual day of the storming of the Capitol? Like, and they hunted people down later, right? And we were getting news reports of all these people being arrested now, but like, there's just, in my mind, there doesn't appear to be any good reason that they couldn't have handled this,
Yeah.
Like, someone understaffed them. Whether through stupidity or malice, I don't know. But there's no reason that, they see crowds of tens of thousands of people all the time. Like, that's a normal part of their job as the Capitol Police. This is bizarre.
I never thought of that. I've never thought of that at all, that they, deal with that routinely and therefore should be able to.
Yeah, there's one of the particular ones that always ends in tons of arrests is the disability rights thing that they do. Like, it's quite frequently. I think it might even be more often than annually. So disability rights activists hold like die-ins, like, and they often get into the hallways of Congress and stuff. And then because they're disabled people, they just like sit there in their wheelchair and they're like, move me, So this happens very regularly, and the police regularly arrest hundreds of wheelchair-bound people at those types of protests all the time. And it often makes the news, although not as much as it should, because it's a very visceral image to see them, hauling away, quadriplegics out of their chairs and stuff, because they're protesting for how horrific disability is in the United States. It's very awful if people aren't familiar, but like, you are not allowed to have more than like $2,000 in assets in your name ever. So you can't even have like a car. I've
heard that the spending is traced like ridiculously, right down to the dollar, where people are afraid to overspend $20-$30 and things like that too.
Yeah, you can only have like a really shitty beater car is all you can ever have in your name. So you never have reliable transportation for like, your doctor's appointments. And you can never get married or you will lose all your benefits. So actually, after gay marriage was legalized everywhere, a lot of people said the real fight is equality for disabled people because there's tons and tons and tons of disabled people that are not able to get married to their partners because they've been disabled since they were, their whole life or whatever, right? So they're on disability payments and it will all go away, including their healthcare coverage, right? They will never be able to hold a job that gives them healthcare coverage because we're terrible with disabled people in the US no matter what. And they can't get married or their healthcare will disappear. And obviously, they probably have high healthcare costs.
Mm-hmm.
It's a travesty. But anyway, that's just one of the protests that I see always a lot of arrests happening. And it's like, if they have the resources to do that, how do they not have the resources to handle something like this? But
yeah. And like, it seemed pretty obvious from just about everything that was happening that like, they were largely allowing this to happen. Like, I did see some videos that showed police pepper spraying people and, like, holding them down, but then, it almost seemed like a symbolic effort because 2 minutes later, they're opening up the barricades and letting people flood in.
Right, and there were definitely a few videos of, like, particular doorways in which a lot of violence was occurring with the police trying to hold them off. But the overall impression was that there wasn't a lot of resistance because, they opened the barricades. They helped them down the stairs. You see that video of them helping the elderly lady down the stairs, holding her hand as they asked her to exit the building kindly? Like, can you imagine that happening to a BLM protester?
Right.
Holding your hand while you walk down the stairs?
It's, it's hard to get into the what ifs, but I just could not see this happening from Black or Indigenous standpoint. I couldn't see people scaling the walls. I couldn't see people making past those checkpoints, and I couldn't see any real cutification of it happening or whatever.
That's like people who have made the comparisons to the infantry that they sent to like Standing Rock, or in Portland they had like the basically SWAT militarized units 3 deep around the
just like a courthouse,
one building, the courthouse,
just a random courthouse, like not literally Senate in session, like just a courthouse.
Yeah, that had kind of slipped my mind, but they straight up tear gassed and those water protesters there. I don't know if they were doing rubber bullets and stuff, but I know it was a heavily, heavily armed presence.
There were water cannons, I know, and people were really upset about that because it was pretty cold when it got on into winter.
There was another headline I had read somewhere that they had started installing metal detectors in the Capitol building, which the first thing I'm like, wait, they didn't already have those?
I know, I can't believe they didn't have them.
Yeah, I got to go through one to pay a ticket.
Those Republican Congress people were complaining about them being put in. I'm like, okay, go stay at an inner city school for 2 days.
Yeah, they have them at they have them at like all the courthouses and the big cities.
Yeah. I not even in the big cities. I used to live in Podunk, Northern California. They had metal detectors when you went into the courthouse.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how they didn't have metal detectors there. That is mind-boggling.
Yeah. And then to have the Republicans complaining about the existence of the metal detectors.
Well, when I was watching it going on, I was kind of like, I just felt like, and the kind of social media response afterward, it just seemed like things were being made cute. And I kind of felt like, well, is this just something that they're going to try to throw like a cute spin on, like with the mascots and everything like that, to kind of normalize it for the really, militant, heavily organized people to come in, right? And that was my immediate thought there. But I think we're starting to see that from some of the reaction that they're really taking it seriously now.
Well, they're talking like they are, but I really hope they put some real work into digging into who strategically, because some of this stuff about, understaffing or poor planning or things like that, you could be sympathetic to these ideas if you were, say, in a high command level within the Capitol Police, right? And you could just sort of forget to schedule something, or you could just delay a call for backup and say you didn't hear it for 20 minutes. And that would have made all the difference in those guys opening up the gates because they felt like they stood no chance versus, having a strong line that held. And I really hope they do some very serious investigations into, who was complicit explicitly or implicitly.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested to see what they do about the members of Congress who backed it, not necessarily Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, there's talk of sanctioning them in some way because they were really behind the rhetoric, but there are several Congress people that were bringing guns to Congress and actively working with these people. And I think that they were pretty much all people who just got elected and just got seated in January. And I have a pretty strong feeling that hopefully there'll be some consequences for them because since they're brand new to Congress, they don't really have any friends or connections there. And so it would be pretty nice to watch Congress throw them out on their ass.
That would be sweet.
Yeah, like there were reports of certain Congress people like giving tours of restricted areas inside the Capitol the day before. So,
and there are clearly people who had very serious plans to do very serious things if they had the opportunity. It's really just luck that they didn't get the chance to do some of that stuff. Like the guy who showed up with all those they weren't zip ties, right? They were actual flexi cuffs or whatever that, Ted Cruz was saying. They're zip ties. It's no big deal. And
yeah, you don't bring a bunch of those even if your goal is just to vandalize,
Oh yeah, you only bring those if you think you're taking hostages.
Exactly.
Yeah, like I think Ben Shapiro was tweeting about how it's no big deal. Everybody has zip ties. But
is that who it was? I think it said Ted Cruz. But I was thinking of that tweet.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
Like everybody has zip ties.
I mean, maybe everybody has zip ties, but not everybody takes them with them to a protest.
And also, most of the zip ties people have are going to be of the very small, thin variety that I have right here for cable management purposes.
That aren't for forcibly confining humans? Is that
Yeah, these are not the kind of things that you're going to be using as plastic handcuffs.
I don't know.
Those
pretty
kinds of
threatening,
zip ties, not very common for people to have unless you're like in construction work.
Oh yeah, people were saying it's the difference between having a butter knife in your kitchen and taking a steak knife to a protest. Like, they're very different things. Like, and knives are just the perfect example because how many people of color have been, booked for having a knife on them when they were literally like going to their chef's job or something, right? Because like in some cities, you can't have a knife over like 3 inches or, there's regulations on some of that stuff. And a lot of people of color have suffered serious consequences just for having a knife on them. So it's ridiculous. My white grandfather tried to board a plane with a giant knife one time, but it's just the knife he always has on his belt for farming, and they just laughed it off, thankfully. But people have consequences for carrying knives.
This is how it is in the northern communities. You'll see people like they'll go walk into a bar and the bartender will be like, hey, take your giant buck knife off your hip and leave it like on top of the pop machine or whatever, it's just...
Yeah.
It's not really seen as a weapon as much.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is like, it's different. Like, yes, you can own knives for legitimate reasons. And if you show up with one at a protest, that's a little different.
It is. And
the police have certainly been able to make decisions on that context before. So why they wouldn't be able to do it with zip ties is silly.
Yeah. Right. Who decides what's threatening and what isn't? I saw one other video about it where a lady seemed to have, I don't know if she smashed a window open or whatever, but she had her head in there and she was basically directing everybody like, over to your left 10 feet is a door and on the other side of that is another door. And, so there was definitely some inside knowledge going into that, which...
Yeah, I heard some audio like that on, I think it was BBC's The World podcast, and they, or PRI or whatever company does that one, but they were playing some audio. I used to listen to
that one all the time. That's like at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. here. They put that on NPR.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I always listen the next day.
Good part is that Trump might be banned from public office for life, isn't it? What, Amendment 14 or something, I think it is. Thinking about it. At the very least, that should happen to him. I mean, at the very least.
I definitely want them to continue to go through as far as they can with impeachment, even if he's out of office. Because I really want Republicans to have to put their cards down one way or the other, because I really want to watch the Republican Party really suffer all the possible consequences of their actions for enabling him. And I would just like them to watch them tear themselves apart from the inside out for having been so ridiculously short-sighted to have courted the Trump base. It's really upsetting to me because, like, I feel like the part of being a grown-up is that you have to understand not to make short-term decisions, to make long-term decisions and ignore the short-term gain, right? And even more so if you want to be a leader. Like, every congressperson is a leader of like a couple 100,000 people, right? Depending on the size of the state. What the hell is wrong with you that you are making a decision that, like, most of these people are like went to some fancy Ivy League college. You can't tell me they didn't realize that they were making a deal with the devil for short-term gain, right? And so it's just like, it's such a betrayal of like just generally being an adult and a competent person to make such a ridiculously stupid decision to support Trump just to get that next election bump or whatever you thought you were looking for with Trump's base, just waiting for the snake to turn around and bite you. And I want the snake to bite them. I want them to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I wonder if it's not a product of like the short-term thinking is always, like a lot of companies, they always think in the terms of the quarter, right? They're thinking in profit terms. They're not thinking of like climate change per se, where like it's long-term effects that we may not see right away. So it's a similar kind of thinking, right? Like,
yeah, they're just thinking about the next election.
Well, and I've heard he's refusing to pay to pay Giuliani his $20,000 a day fee. So imagine that, he stiffs his own friends after they work for him.
Oh,
shit.
gosh.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like he built an empire on stiffing people from doing labor.
I tried to change. That's one of the tactics I took to try to change my dad's mind about Trump, was talking to him about how that's what he did as a business owner, right? He got all these contractors in and then refused to pay them for the work they did and stuff like that. But I don't know if I made much of a dent. But just, because I feel like we've all met people like that, right? And it's just like no respect for people like that. And why? I don't know.
Yeah. The mighty dollar, I guess. I saw a bit of a story about, I don't know how true or one-sided it is, but this was about the founders of McDonald's, the two McDonald's brothers, and the guy that basically corporatized them and completely bought them out because they weren't cutthroat enough. So the brothers McDonald, I think, ended up with, a nominal amount, and Joe Businessman that bought out their company from underneath him is, multi-billionaire, as we all know, right?
Of course.
Things like that happen. I got managed to find some positive news going on, believe it or not, for the new year. It's actually not new. A friend of mine has been involved in this for a while. Well, she's at the very least been interested in it, and she mentioned it a while back, and it's a neat idea, and I just kind of researched it tonight. The thing is called Skateistan, and it's skate like skateboard, and then ISTAN. And the idea is the guy Oliver someone or other, it's on the website if you look at it, was doing work in Kabul. I always want to pronounce it Kabul, but I understand from somebody from Afghanistan that it is Kabul. Anyway, so he's working there, and he was skateboarding, and basically, got the attention of the kids and stuff like that. And through, it's on the website, so I'm not exposing it to, Islamic higher ups so that it gets cut out. But so anyways, girls are allowed to participate in this because it's not considered a sport. The skateboard is considered a toy under Islamic law, which is allowed to is probably the wrong word, but it's permitted under Islamic law. So anyways, they're it's almost like a 50-50 split, male and female skateboarders. So
Nice.
what they were able to do then was incorporate education with skateboarding. So the students are basically learning to skate, to pull, sick tricks and stuff. And then they spend an equal amount of time in the class learning, social issues and things like that, things they might not have learned otherwise. And so, yeah, it's just it seems like a super cool program. They've opened up other branches of it. It's still called Skateistan, but now they're in Cambodia and a few other places. So, I mean, it's just, it's really cool. Like, I mean, I remember being younger, and I skateboarded a little bit as, I guess an adolescent. I can't remember. I think I broke my foot and never really.
Oh, no.
I never really got back on it again. But, it always, growing up, it seemed to always kind of have a shady reputation a little bit, right? I don't know about where you guys were, but, and this was, we're talking 25 years ago before they had public parks and stuff. So, for people to find concrete was usually in a public zone or somebody's store or whatever. And so you kind of had
somewhere
this
you weren't really supposed to be skateboarding.
Right. It was generally the idea. So now to see that, that it's switched over to this, it's really cool. And I think it's really awesome that the female ratio, in those Islamic countries that are able to take advantage of this and get educated. And
that's awesome. I bet they're really happy to have an outlet to do something physical. That's probably really nice.
Yeah.
Since they're banned from sports.
Yeah, that's awful for sure. And I wasn't even really aware of that until I read the article about about Skateistan.
Wow, that's really cool.
Really cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like by the time I was in high school, skateboarding was like a little faux pas. It was a little before my time.
Well, it was super cool when I was in high school. Was it junior high? It was one of the two.
Yeah. I don't see it as much anymore. I don't know if people are still doing it. I mean, they still building parks and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a skate park right next to the Historical Society in the big town that I live near. And I would, there was usually people there when I would go to the Historical Society.
Right. You're at the Historical Society and they're out doing skateboard stuff, huh?
Yeah, I think because they're maybe both public land or something, that they were right there. Like it was like part of the parking lot. They'd turned into a skate park. It's not like the Historical Society was busy. So
it sounds about like my life, though. It's funny how you end up from one place to the other, Yeah. So, but no, I think the culture is very much still alive for sure. I still hear about it from time to time from people. And then this other guy, Joe Buffalo, he is from my reserve on Treaty 6 territory in Musqueam, Alberta. And he has now gotten a sponsorship through, let me get this right, Colonialism Skateboards, which is Indigenous owned and based out of Cody Reserve, which is here on Treaty 4 territory. And so Joe has managed to go pro. He's gotten a sponsorship and things like that, which is incredibly awesome. He is a descendant. He's a residential school survivor and a descendant of Poundmaker. Descendant of Poundmaker. So he has gotten his own skateboard line now, which you should definitely check out at, I don't know if I'm allowed to plug things in there or whatever, but
I don't think there's any problem with it.
Right, it is Colonialism skateboards, sorry. And yeah, there's just all kinds of really like beautiful artistic pieces I consider to be these graphics on these skateboards, and so have a look at them, but don't buy any until I get some. And then, and then you can buy a whole bunch. They're always all sold out of the really good ones. So,
of course,
which is an awesome sign, hopefully they can
Yeah, hopefully that's good for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I feel like skateboarding is a thing people could get back into now with the pandemic. I feel like it's a fairly pandemic-friendly hobby, so maybe some people can reconnect with it.
Yep,
That's a very good point.
Yeah,
it
it's outdoors. You don't tend to spend a lot of time near other people. Makes sense.
Yeah, and you certainly don't have to practice. Like you don't have to be around other people.
That used to be the big selling point when I was in junior high, was that you could just do it in front of your house and practice, and you didn't have to have anybody around.
Right.
That's the selling point. You didn't need friends.
Yeah, I didn't need any friends then.
I mean, I would have been all for it. I didn't have friends, really.
Yeah, it worked for me too.
Yeah, it looks like I'm just looking at the website now, and I can't. They're absolutely every single one is sold out.
Yeah.
There's no designs that aren't sold out. So
Right, and the Joe's one is just a beautiful picture of Chief Poundmaker, and then they also have one that I think is called the Treaty Pass or something, the pass system board, which is basically a printout of what would have been the pass system that was required to leave the reserves back in the day.
they've got a series of boards here called the Scream, and it's an image of like religious Catholic priests and nuns and RCMP officers taking children away from Indigenous mothers, and
wow.
Yeah, it's wow.
Is that the one? Like, is it mural? Look like a mural?
Yeah, it's like a mural. It's by Vent.
That's an actual
Kent
mural
Oakman.
from somewhere. I can't remember where it's from, but it's
okay.
Yeah, it's a legit mural of all that going on, and there's some deeper message to it too. I can't remember
It's
what.
pretty brutal.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Wow.
Then they also have one of I think Louis Riel as a Star Wars character too.
Nice.
There's a couple different things. It's pretty cool.
I will add links into the show notes for this stuff, because this is
Right.
very cool.
Well, I figured out what topic I should have brought. So I'm wearing this shirt that I bought from one of my favorite podcasts, the Dirt Podcast, and it says, "Archaeology, it's never aliens."
Perfect.
But I should do a deep dive for you guys on why Ancient Aliens is super racist. And not just
Please
because
do.
not just because the whole David Icke lizard people thing is actually code language for Jewish people. The actual ancient aliens theories about who really built the pyramids and how it usually almost always connects back to old philosophies by colonizers about showing up and finding evidence of ancient civilizations and going, well, the savages here couldn't have built that. So there must have been white people here, and then they came and these guys wiped out all the white people, and that's why there's beautiful monuments and cities and things like that. And now, ancient alien theories do also get applied to things like Stonehenge, but generally speaking, the origin of them and the groups who kind of get their culture erased by aliens did it, are almost always indigenous people, or in the case of Egyptians, just generally people of color, not Western white folks. So there's actually a really racist undertone to the whole aliens did it stuff. So
kidding.
I should do a deep dive on some of that, because I have some I've seen some actual data about that. So
I was a little bit aware of that, but not, to much of an extent, but, and I think we might have touched on this on a previous episode about some the mound building, or it might have just been while we were talking, but some of the mound building stuff where they're these people couldn't have possibly have piled dirt into mounds and things like this, right? Yeah. But where was I going with this? Yeah, no, I am a Ancient Aliens fan. Well, was up until now, and thank you. But no, But some of the things I do find interesting, though, about things like that, I guess, is like when you have a picture on, say, like a cave or something of a guy with a big, like, helmety looking thing, or, kind of thing like that. And then, like, on the other side of the world, you might have a similar picture of a guy in a helmety thing on a similar craft, right? So I've always thought that was kind of neat. Like, and some of them, according to the pictures they show me on television, look a lot alike, like almost too strikingly alike for it to be a coincidence.
Well, there's a lot of really interesting sort of work in like ancient art history about like certain motifs that seem to always appear, you know what I mean? And seem to have been like fairly constant at a certain point in time. And, some of them are really basic, like spirals, like cultures all over the world, when you go back about like 20,000 years or something, love to carve spirals. Like everybody was carving spirals, so like there are common themes. And so, the question is that like, because there was sort of a shared culture as humans traveled all over the world, or is it more about like a shared neurology that like we all have the same brains and something about our brains makes us like carving spirals, like makes spirals an interesting thing that's going to occur to most people at some point when they're doing art, So there are people who work on that kind of thing, which is very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, very neat. So, the topic I had this week is only semi-related to the Capitol thing, and it's about a popular encrypted messaging app. I'm sure most of you have heard of it, called WhatsApp. It was bought out by Facebook several years back, and I remember thinking at the time when I heard about it, well, that's not good. And turns out I was right. I may have been a few years late in my predictions, but, pretty much exactly what I predicted was going to happen happened, which is to say that WhatsApp has now basically said, if you don't share your data with us, you can't use the platform anymore.
Oh, jeez.
Now, like they're not specifically stating that they're looking at the content of messages. They still seem to imply that all that stuff is secure, but who you're talking to, when you're talking to them, how much you're talking to them, all the metadata, that's completely up for grabs for Facebook now. So a lot of people have been abandoning ship because they relied on WhatsApp's encryption and privacy. And now that's kind of not nearly as strong. So a lot of people have been going to another app called Signal, which is based on the same basic protocol as WhatsApp. In fact, it was Signal was started by the same people that started WhatsApp after Facebook bought it. But they are much more privacy-centered and focused. However, the sudden influx of people ended up not exactly shutting down Signal, but causing some pretty major instability issues with it over the last few days. So it's been kind of overloaded with new users. So that's been pretty interesting to see, because I use Signal myself for organizing locally. It's been a great tool for organizing with other leftists in an area and just kind of communicating stuff like that. So but it is good to see that Signal's suddenly getting a lot more users, and a lot of people are leaving WhatsApp. So I'm definitely happy about that, and we'll see what, if any, response Facebook gives to this, because so far it's been pretty shit.
Yeah, they just can't keep their hands off the data. It's their whole operating model.
Yeah, big data has always been Facebook's primary source of revenue, because they can sell that shit to advertisers. So,
does anybody know like the actual information on like if your phone is listening to you? Because it has been for the last year steadily increasing the number of times I have a conversation about something, never Google it, no reason for it whatsoever, and then suddenly get it advertised to me, So like, and that's been increasing and it's accelerating. Now it happens to me almost every week.
Yeah, so you're not the only person to bring this up. My mom brings it up to me all the time. What I can say is that, to my knowledge, the phone is not actively listening to you, but it is going to be, like, there are definitely
Nobody believes that.
Well, that's why I say to my knowledge. But, like, in order for that data to get somewhere, a specific app would have to be listening to you that would then sell it to advertisers and so if you don't allow, the various apps in your phone to listen to you, which most of them don't, then usually there won't be an issue. However, one thing I will say is that advertisers have been getting a lot better at micro-targeting ads based purely on demographics and other related information. So even though you've never searched for a thing before, if you've talked about it, that means that there's probably some interest, some tangentially related thing that you have looked up or you have communicated somewhere. And and they've been able to pick up on that and show you what they believe to be a relevant ad. So
and I want to be a good skeptic who's like, they're not listening to me, they're just micro-targeting. But like, when I get an ad for men's underwear, having never bought men's underwear, but having had a 10-minute conversation about the styles of men's underwear 3 hours earlier, like,
so
it just gets to be so weird.
Yeah, it's definitely that is definitely a peculiar situation for sure. And like, one thing they might be able to do is, like, a lot of these apps do or can tend to like track locations, and so like, if it's if they detect you and someone else has been in the same location for a while, then it's possible they could be like crossing some of that data over, saying, well, if your friends are interested in it, maybe you're interested in it. Yeah. And so perhaps it is like doing some sort of location digging, and that's one of the reasons that I'm very selective with what apps I give my location data.
Yeah.
Especially
for sure.
Like you say, like, I mean, we don't all know everything that our friends have searched or looked for or clicked on, and it seems really fishy, but yeah, they could totally have searched for that. You talk to that person, therefore you might be interested in it too.
Yeah. And it might not even be a location thing. It might just be you have a social relationship with the person, which could, which probably exists digitally as well as physically. So, you've got
your Twitter
contact in your phone,
your
your Twitter friends, your Facebook friends. You've had, communications with them. And that's one of the reasons this whole WhatsApp thing is so concerning, is that they're specifically talking about sharing who you talk to. And so that by itself can create those sorts of links.
And maybe I do talk about men's underwear like once every 6 months, and I just don't really remember it. But when an ad happens to show up right after the conversation,
or all you talk about in your sleep.
Or possibly you've received men's underwear ads before, but because it's not relevant to you, you just kind of scroll past it without paying it any attention.
Totally.
And then suddenly it's fresh in your mind because you just had this conversation and now you're noticing it. There are a lot of potential biases that can be getting in the way of how we interpret these things. And the fact is we just don't have... we don't have the capacity to like remember everything we'd seen prior to and after.
What's the name for that one? There's a name for that bias where it's like you have it on your mind, so then you notice it all the time. Like, people do that with a new word, right? You learn a new word, and then all of a sudden you notice hearing it all the time, but like, you're not hearing it more. You just I
want to call it I want to call it like selection bias or confirmation bias, but neither of those sound.
It's a type of confirmation bias, I think, but I want to be more specific.
Yeah, the other one I got this week was like, I turned to my husband because I'm just going stir crazy, and I said, "Oh my God, I'm going to say it. I think that you could get me to go camping. You could get me. I would go on a trip in which the purpose of it was hiking. And that is not a thing I have ever said in my life.
No.
I am not. It's not that I am not an outdoorsy person.
You strike
just,
me as the outdoorsy type.
I'm outdoors every single day for my job.
Exactly. Right.
And when I was a kid, my parents drug me camping like every single weekend because they raced dirt bikes. So like I was camping constantly. And so I don't know, like I've just never understood the appeal of camping or hiking because it's just like, I think it's just, I'm just spoiled because I'm outside all the time for my like daily life. So I'm like, why would you do that? Like
Why
there's
would
no
you do this on
magic in
purpose?
camping for me because
The
I was
novelty
just,
has worn off.
yeah, because I was just constantly drug camping where I was just bored all the time. And I was like, does anybody have like a charger? Like I remember when laptops were a thing and I was like, where could I find power for this laptop? Because I was camping by myself while my parents dirt biked constantly. But I was like, I could go, like, I could book a trip and I would like drive there and I would like go hiking because I am so going stir crazy and like, that actually does sound appealing to me right now. And then like a day later, my roommate, not who I was talking to, she got an article advertised to her in her Google feed that was like, how to get your reluctant spouse to go camping or something like that.
Yeah.
Seems oddly specific.
Again, I think I think that's a little bit of confirmation bias, but I also think it is entirely possible that your husband looked up something about camping and
Right.
that tracked the IP address. Like, that's far more likely than your phone listening to you, I think.
Kevin
Right,
is
right.
our tech guy, so his feet get held to the flames for every paranoid suspicion that we have.
It's true. It's
But
true.
he's doing a good job of defending it, for sure.
And I can just imagine that right now that's a thing that would be like a hot article about camping, right? Because that's a thing that people are probably doing to get out of the house in this pandemic, right? So I didn't bring that one up as my best example because I was like, camping is probably a hot topic right now. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's probably not that.
I'm going full on log cabin building, but not in like a Teddy Kaczynski kind of way, more in like a peaceful bird chirping kind of, maybe a Thoreau kind of thing. But
There you go.
my most recent proudest possession is a log peeler that I managed to get. So
Nice.
I'm
Nice.
pretty
Log
excited
peeler.
about.
Now
I'm
we're all going to
equally
get
as-
ads for log peelers.
What's that?
I say now we're all going to get ads for log peelers.
Yeah, I know. You'll be lumberjacks before you know it. I'm equally as excited about the log peeler as I am about this kick-ass new computer system that I'm able to broadcast on.
Nice.
Oh, it's pretty sweet. A friend of mine made it to me, and it has an actual terabyte, so I am up in that class with you all now. So
Oh, you're ahead of me. I don't have data storage.
I feel like I
needs.
can piss with the pack now. Or play with the pups, right? Isn't that what they say?
That must be a Canadianism. I don't know.
It must be, yeah. Piss with the pack or play with the pups, eh?
This is okay. This reminds me of a conversation a friend of mine had with his partner. He lives in Washington D.C. and he said something about fucking the dog.
That's Canadian. No, I've
That's
heard it in North
Canadian, right?
Dakota. No, I think
when,
it is
when
Canadian.
you're lazy, you fuck the dog instead of doing work.
Yeah, that's like slacking off. It'd be the in old school terms, it would be slacking off. But yeah,
Oh, got some fucking weird sayings.
I fucked the dog at work all day, and your average Canadian would be like, "Oh, cool." I was like, sounds like a good day of work. I don't know, weird, hey?
Yeah, he lived in Canada during high school, so he knew the saying "fucking the dog."
Mm.
And he said this, and his partner was like, "That's disgusting. What the fuck is wrong?"
What are you talking about? That's awful.
So
all right.
yeah, that's Canadian.
Tonight Gwen made fun of me because we say go bed the calves or go bed the cows to mean like put straw down for them or corn stalks down for them. And she's like, in any other context, that would be really lewd. And then she made even more fun of me when I told her to go water the calves. She's like, they're not plants. I'm not going to water them. It's like, you bring them water. You water the calves. What else are you going to call it?
That's
You're
what it's
bringing
called.
them water.
Right.
Yeah.
You water them.
Don't pour it on them.
I mean, they may not be plants, but all living things need water. At least all living things that we're familiar with do.
You feed them, you water them. What do you do? What else would you call it other than watering them? So much work to say give them water.
What, it's like you drink them, you
No.
Drink the dogs some water.
You hydrate them, apparently. But you don't really, because they don't drink the water right then. Like, you're just giving them water so they have it in front of them. I don't know. But you bed them, you water them, you feed them. It's all the same verb, okay?
Yep, exactly.
There's nothing lewd happening. They're not plants.
And nobody's literally fucking the dog.
Apparently not.
Fooding the cow.
Language is
Why
funny.
is that a thing? So that's just like a thing. Like, people say that?
I don't know where it started,
so,
but
yeah.
that's, yeah.
I've heard it in North Dakota, but it was only around other Canadians, so I think we're just saying it amongst ourselves in North Dakota, so I don't think it counts.
It might not count.
I was watching a TV show with Australians, and there was like a lot of
Australians have their own
teenage girls, and whenever they say something is like I think it's the equivalent of like we would say like, oh my God, that's bugging the shit out of me, or like, that's driving me nuts. They say, that's giving me the shits, or you're giving me the shits. So like if somebody's whining, they'll be like, shut up, Cassie, you're giving me the shits. And it's like, I guess if I say you're bugging the crap out of me, I guess it is kind of the same thing. But for some reason, it sounds so graphic and awful to hear like a 17-year-old girl say like, oh my God, you're giving me the shits.
Stop giving me the shits. I'm going to popularize that on the streets of Moose Jaw, perhaps in t-shirt form.
That's awesome.
We have a hard time looking menacing in our hoodies here in Saskatchewan because they're called bunny hugs.
Yeah, that's right. Our bunny hugs.
Yeah.
What?
Your bunny hugs and your toques.
Yeah, my most Cannibal Corpse scariest.
Bunny hugs are what they call hoodies.
It's my Cannibal Corpse bunny hug.
Yeah.
See, I fight with my husband about this because he calls sweatshirts sweaters. And I'm like, it's not a sweater, it's a sweatshirt. A sweater is like...
Okay, wait. A sweater is like a knit thing, like a Christmas type.
Like this. Yeah, this is a sweater. Okay, this is a sweater. You know?
Yeah.
A sweatshirt is like a hoodie. No, this is not a sweatshirt.
No.
And a sweater is not a sweater.
A sweater is like a hoodie without a hood. Right? No, wait.
Yeah,
a sweatshirt is a hoodie without a hood. A sweater is like a Christmas deal.
Yeah.
Okay, no.
A hoodie is a hoodie.
A sweater and a sweatshirt are both like they are both things you wear over your t-shirt to be warm, but that are not as thick as a coat.
No, a lot of like women's sweaters are not meant to be worn over anything. It just means it's made of knit fabric.
I don't. that seems awfully specific, and like I've never heard it.
But a
used
sweatshirt.
in that context.
Does anybody actually
a sweater and a
sweat?
sweatshirt are interchangeable terms in my world. Like
yeah.
I've
A
never heard
sweatshirt
them
is the
used
same
in-
as sweatpants.
Yeah, it's like the same material as sweatpants. That's a sweatshirt.
And we use them to lay on the couch and eat nachos.
But see, sweatpants I also just call sweats, and like I consider them and sweaters to be of the same material. So to me, it's all the same stuff. Like I don't see a reason to differentiate them because sweaters are things you wear to keep warm, generally.
I mean, they are warmer than other fabrics.
Like this is a hoodie, but it's also a sweater.
Because it zips up in the front.
I mean, yes, but even pullover hoodies are still sweaters.
Oh, pullover hoodie now.
I disagree.
Okay, this is too much.
Now that's a bunny hug.
Well, no, there's because there's the zip front hoodies,
No wonder
and then there's
we
the
just
pullover
said,
hoodies.
okay, bunny hug. No, these guys don't know what they're talking about.
So a bunny hug
They're a bunch of
zips or
time zone
doesn't zip?
changers. Don't listen to them.
A bunny hug does not zip.
A bunny hug does not zip. If it zips, it's not a bunny hug.
That's correct.
I think, yeah.
Then it's just a sweatshirt or a sweater.
No, it's not a sweater though. I'm dying on this hill. God damn it.
What do you call the back roads where you're from, Del? Do you call them gravel roads or back roads or range roads or? If you're
I haven't
going
heard
for a
range
drive,
roads.
you don't.
I haven't heard range roads. Dirt road or gravel road. I guess. I have heard some people be weird about, like, it's not a dirt road, it's a gravel road. And to me, dirt road and gravel road is the same thing.
Yeah. The difference is, like, if dirt road, when it rains, you can't go on it or whatever, but interchangeable. They're called grids here.
Yeah, grid roads.
Grids?
The grid roads, yeah.
Oh,
Specifically,
I could understand that because they're often done in a grid system, albeit a much larger grid system than you might find in a city. But I remember when I lived in California, a lot of the smaller towns with large farming communities, they would have like these grids of county roads that would, go north to south, east to west. And like you look at them on a map and it's very square. But like these were all, non-standard, like generally not even paved roads. So usually I would call them, I would call those dirt roads even if they have gravel on them.
Yeah. That makes sense, though. Yeah, they are usually in a grid. Not always. But.
And then go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say our province, the significant populated portion of it is laid out in 1 mile by 2 mile grid. Mm-hmm. So it's specifically grid laid out. You can get the grid number for that location if you have to go to a specific section of land.
And it's flat as hell,
1
so you
mile
can have a
by
grid.
1 mile.
It's completely flat.
Yeah.
Other than Mount Moose Jaw, we are pretty flat, so you can't have a grid. And the mountainous areas, like out in British Columbia, their back roads are all windy, and you can get all lost, and it's super fun.
So up where my aunt and uncle live, about 30 minutes or so from the Canadian border, they actually live on Highway 1, U.S. Highway 1. It's super flat. They snowmobile over the border and stuff all the time. And their roads are in a grid like that, but they're not even gravel roads. They're minimum maintenance roads. Do you guys have those?
Yeah.
So they don't actually get any maintenance. And there's just big signs on them that say minimum maintenance road, travel at your own risk, which is really comforting.
Our signs aren't that big, but yeah, we have those.
nobody lives up there, so they still have the roads in the grid, but like you don't use them. Like no one, they don't maintain them. So.
Impassable in winter. Do not drive on when wet.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Nobody plows them. They don't get. Yeah.
One day a year, somebody drives a tractor on them or something. I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. So those are always fun, but there actually happens to be one. I don't see minimum maintenance road down by where I live, like ever. But there is one on the other side of my lake, and my roommate went walking one time and came back, and she was like, what the hell is this travel at your own risk thing? Why do you have roads like that?
Right.
I was like, oh, you found a minimum maintenance road. I didn't know we had any in this county. Good for you.
If you
I've never
hear
been to that side of my lake.
Yeah, if you hear banjos, run fast.
Yeah, it's just around the other side of the lake, I guess. I guess nobody needed to go up that way, but...
I shouldn't say that. I'm a bluegrass fan. Shouldn't stereotype the banjo.
I mean, it can be creepy in the right context still. I feel like you can embrace that and still be a bluegrass fan.
The movie Deliverance, I feel, is solely responsible for creepifying the banjo.
Here, I'm going to share a video with you guys. This is Saskatchewan language. Go.
Saskatchewan what?
This came out a few years ago.
Looks like they have the demographics covered.
Hello, and thanks to all you Saskatchewan people for sharing your opinions on local municipal government. Now, who wants to start?
Well, truth is, the grids could use some work, eh?
Grids?
Yeah. I was cruising to Speedy Creek to get a fragile Aki the other day. The grid on that back 40 is brutal. I almost hit the rhubarb.
I bust open a 2-4 pill that I had just got at the LB.
The LB.
No kidding, eh? We were driving by the nuisance ground on the way to Kaiser tournament, and I was just goosing her when the front wheel went into a hole the size of a dugout. Wife had a nice tray of dainties on her lap. She wound up with a slab of matrimonial cake stuffed to her forehead. Plus now the block heater's gibbled.
Gibbled?
You bet, eh? Little Jason here spilt Vico all over his bunny hug.
Bunny?
Vico is no longer a thing, unfortunately.
Yep, he was so frightened to
No.
watch.
I think that's a type of fish.
Yes, would it kill him to use the grater once in a while? Those grids are so rough that hubby and I blew a tire coming back from the lake last summer. Everyone on Coffee Row sure had a good laugh when we had to walk 3 miles to town in our thongs.
Right, I remember.
I gotta go.
Thong.
I gotta pick up a whack of brewskis at the board store before the game.
It is not uncommon to see
A watermelon?
a watermelon on the head.
Yeah, no, that's
Wow.
not. That's pretty normal.
So, like the Wisconsinites have cheese heads, you have watermelon heads?
Yeah, melon heads.
They're
Melon
in
heads.
support of the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Yes.
And why is the watermelon the chosen symbol of the Rough Riders?
Perhaps you should be asking why the watermelon isn't the chosen symbol of your local sports team.
Well, see, at least with the cheeseheads, it's because Wisconsin is famous for producing a lot of cheese. But I cannot imagine that Saskatchewan is famous for producing watermelon, given that that is a tropical fruit.
He has a point.
Why?
I'll bring this up at the next provincial
It looks
meeting
messy.
by the tree. Next time, you hear that, everybody? Next time we meet by the tree in Saskatchewan, we will discuss Kevin's quarry.
But it's cool, so make sure to wear your bunny hug.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Uh,
A bunny hug,
What-
though. Oh, great. I'm just going to start calling it that in my house because I'm wearing one most of the time and just wait for Gwen and Matt to pick up on it. And they'll just have to wait until this episode comes out before they have any idea what I'm talking about. It's going to be great for a few days.
For a few days.
A bunny hug.
Yeah.
Like, I could use that one. I'm not going to start talking about fucking dogs, though.
Right, yeah.
Not that many people use that one that I know of anymore.
No.
For obvious
But
reasons.
funny how we could probably use both of those terms in the same sentence if we chose.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
They don't sound like they go together. Or perhaps they do. That's even creepier. Well, have we perverted them with our Saskatchewan ways for long enough? Do you think?
I think we
you
have.
damn Canadians.
We've
We'll
come
have to
to
find
where-
something.
We need to work on our recruitment tactics for getting Americans here.
we don't have
living
anything
in
fun
America is
Minnesota.
sufficient recruitment for wanting to go to Canada.
To be
trust
Is
me.
it?
Canadian.
Okay. As long as
No.
we didn't completely deter you, then we're doing okay.
The only things we have in Minnesota are duck, duck, gray duck instead of duck, duck, goose, and hot dish instead of casserole. Although technically there are sort of some differences between hot dish and casserole, but that's all we've got.
Duck, gray duck? Really?
Great.
You added an extra syllable to a child's game? Why?
No, it's great. No, it's great. It's actually wonderful. It's highly superior because you use it to teach kids like language parts because so what you do is like you can say different colors or just different adjectives while you go around. So you can be like duck, duck, purple duck, silly duck, polka dot duck, and then and eventually you say gray duck, right? So it's a lot more interesting.
Well, I mean, in Duck Duck Goose, usually, when I was playing it as a kid, I remember people would use different animals. So, they would go duck, duck, pig, cow, moose, goose.
Wow, you guys had some whole nother level duck, duck, goose games going on.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
I feel pretty basic now.
Well, the idea was always to try and trick the other kids into thinking you said goose, because if you say duck enough times and then you change it, then they're going to automatically process that as, oh, that's different. That's not duck. Therefore, I should get up and run when that is not time to do that.
Trickery.
I've even seen it used in foreign language classes, and you had to do it in Spanish or whatever. So then you have to think of your colors, and you have to that type of thing, right?
I like to think that the people of Minnesota, when they first saw a goose, were so confused. They're like, "What is that?" And I don't know, it was a big gray duck. And it just kind of stuck.
There's literally like no explanation for it. Like the folk myth is that like it's that way in Scandinavia, and Minnesotans like immigrated from Scandinavia, so they're the real originals. But it actually turns out that like it came from Minnesota back to Scandinavia. If you actually like look in the history books, that they say gray duck now, but like. There's nothing. There's pretty much nothing to.
One of these episodes may be further towards next Christmas. Dare I mention it? I should talk about some of the terrifying Norwegian Christmas, what would you call them, traditions that I grew up with. Yeah, it makes Krampus seem mild, these Norwegian ones. They would grind your bones and they would come and spy on you.
I mean, Krampus literally drags children down to hell when they're naughty, so that's pretty gruesome.
Yeah, that's worse.
I mean, and then you also have, what was her name? It was the Yule lads and... Grelda, something like that. I just watched it in an episode of Hilda on Netflix. But like there are these kids who, so there's this ogre or witch, depending on the version of the tale, who will eat naughty children around Christmas time. And she has a bunch of these young boys who she was going to eat, but they made a deal with her that instead they would bring her other naughty children to eat every Christmas. And so they are called the Yule lads. And so, yeah, the Yule lads now go around looking for naughty children, dragging them off to Grilda or whatever her name was, so that she can eat them.
Nice.
So yeah, there are some pretty fucking gruesome Christmas myths all throughout Germanic mythology.
I think so. Keep the kids in line.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Terrifying.
We had one, I won't go into all of it, but one of the most terrifying was the Yule Nisa. This was the Christmas elf. And he would, if you didn't leave out a bowl of dessert rice for him in front of your door, he would catch your animals, your pets and your farm animals, and ride on their backs until they were dead.
Oh my God.
So you did not want to forget your Yule Nisa rice.
No
Christmas
kidding.
Eve.
Yep, that checks out. Oh,
I feel like I'm going to have nightmares about that now.
What's that?
Gryla was her name.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever I'm really stressed, I have various dreams about horrible things happening to my cows. So I feel like you've just added to the repertoire there of what I can circle through.
Well, I will send you my mom's Yule Nisa rice recipe, so you don't need to worry. You're,
leave that out for the cats to eat.
Your business is safe.
All right, good deal. I can deal with that. It's not the worst nightmare anyone here has ever had. My husband had a nightmare once that we forgot to milk the cows and one of their udders exploded and they got launched into the air and stuck in a tree. So.
Okay.
Can that happen?
What? No, I don't think
so. Not propelling them into trees, I don't think.
Good.
So.
Good.
What about the exploding part, though? That seems pretty...
I mean... I don't think exploding, but there have been like burst blood vessels that cause them to bleed out and die internally in certain
That's
situations.
Pretty intense.
Yeah. The milk vein on the bottom, like, okay, so nobody here is probably in a position to see a dairy cow up close anytime soon, but if you look at a dairy cow,
tonight.
like they have like this huge vein. It's like this big around. Sorry, I can't figure out my camera. It's like this big around. It's like bigger than an inch, right on the bottom of their belly leading to their udder. And because they make so much milk now, like it's something like a couple 100 gallons of blood have to pass through their udder to make each gallon of milk. And they can bleed out from a pinhole in that blood vessel because there's so much blood going through it all the time. Like it's bigger than like, it's like the biggest vein in their body. I mean, I don't know if it's going to, it must be coming from the lungs to the udder. So then it's not a vein, it's a blood vessel. But anyway, it's giant.
Yikes.
And like, yeah, like they can bleed out from like a pinhole in it because it processes so much blood. So like I have heard sort of horror stories through the grapevine of people trying to fill their cows' udders for the show, like really, really high producing cows, and like a blood vessel in the udder bursting from the swelling, and then the cow basically dying immediately.
I knew they could get severe discomfort from not being milked enough, but I didn't know it could be fatal.
Yeah, and like in most situations, like they would just be very uncomfortable, and you probably could have a lot of swelling and stuff. And certainly, like, we do stop milking them at a certain point every year, but like you do that on purpose, like once they are quite far out and like coming down in production on their own anyway. So it's not like right at peak when you're trying to feed them to make a ton of milk. But yeah, so anyway, but I don't think it would cause like a propellant explosion situation. It's just an internal.
We're clear on that now.
Thing. Yeah. No. I constantly have nightmares about like having like walking into a barn and realizing that I've forgotten my cows for months and they're all just laying there like still alive but like dying, or like I put a halter on my cow and tied her to a tree and came back a year later and she was just like alive and suffering. Like I have weird dreams like that. Like some people have dreams about forgetting to go to class for 6 months. I have dreams about forgetting to feed my cows for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Only when I'm really stressed about them. So they're kind of horrifying.
I suspect that you'll never forget for that long. But
right.
Yeah, right. I know, right? Like it's the silliest thing. I also have dreams about like, I had a litter of kittens here once who the mom didn't eat the umbilical cord and they all got tied in a knot with each other. Like, really? Yeah. And like I noticed it immediately. So I literally like took them to the vet. Well, I got them all cut apart on my own except for one whose tiny little foot had been wrapped like so tight with this silly umbilical cord. He was actually named Jason because the whole litter was named after the Good Place. And I was like, wow, you're like 4 hours old and you're already doing Jason shit. Good job, buddy. Like you wrapped your foot in this umbilical cord and you got your entire litter tied in a knot that they would have died from if like a human wasn't supervising them. And I took them to the vet and I just had them like cut it off carefully with a nice sharp scalpel, and everybody was fine. His foot was a little wonky for a day or two, but so sometimes I have really weird dreams about like finding dying kittens randomly like scattered about the yard or something. So that's been an addition to my stress.
Worst Easter ever.
Yes. But in that case, all of the kittens were fine. Everything was good. Everybody's fine. I just have to not get super stressed out, and then I don't have weird, disturbing animal dreams. So it's fine.
There you go.
So now I can have dreams about them getting ridden to death.
There you go. You're welcome.
It's good. That's fine. I feel like it's fine. It's good to mix it up with some variety.
You're fine for like 350 days. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, because it's only at Christmas that I have to do the rice.
Will the Yulenisa come after you? Yep.
Horrifying Christmas traditions. When did our collective psyche change so much around like fairy tales? When we decided, like, was it Disney? Did Disney decide that fairy tales had to be happy, and then
I don't know, but yeah, I learned the vulgar original No Mercy fairy tales for sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Disney. Like, it makes sense that it, like, because they turned things like Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and all these things into these, you know, happy ending style fairy tales, when, in fact, fairy tales were typically meant to be, you know, warning stories to kids about don't do these things because you will die.
Yeah, what I learned, Hansel and Gretel were to be murdered, and the father took them out into the forest so they wouldn't be murdered, and they weren't lost. They, you know, yeah, they were to be I think the stepmother wanted to get rid of them or something in the original one that I learned.
Yeah, and in the real Sleeping Beauty, she's unconscious through the whole, like, you know, impregnation and pregnancy, and wakes up because she, like, is giving birth or something. Yep. So it's actually just like a weird rape story.
Bad lessons.
That's not cool.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's like kind of horrifying. It's like, oh, okay then. Not as fun. Definitely.
Could be why they changed them.
Yeah, maybe.
All our songs are about the plague lately. Maybe we should have a different game.
How do we make this for kids?
Yeah.
We're less terrified of our children like falling into the lake and drowning, so we don't need to tell them like horror stories about, because I think you're right, Kevin. I think I heard somewhere there's a lot of like bog witch stories and stuff, and there is a theory that it was about just scaring the shit out of kids so that they would listen to you. Like don't go near the pond or you will die.
Yeah, and like a lot of them are just straight up don't disobey your parent style stories. Like, it's because they did this thing that their parents told them not to do, and they found out that there was this horrible thing. But like, I think even like Sleeping Beauty was something about like she disobeyed her parents, and like that ended up being why she she fell into that sleep, because like she went and touched the fucking spinning wheel, even though like they knew for years and years that these spinning wheels shouldn't be there and like that she should avoid them. So
I don't remember the rest of it. I just remember that it was actually.
But like I'm almost certain that it was definitely a don't disobey your parents type of story, as most of them tended to be.
So it was just scare the shit out of your children so they listen to you, and that was like just the parenting style of the last 1,000 years or so, like medieval times onward at least, was just like, you'll be eaten by monsters if you don't listen to me.
There was also the hitting. They also hit their kids.
Yeah, there was a lot of the hitting.
Feudal Europe was very, very strict about it. They were very spare the rod, spoil the child,
Yeah, very authoritarian in all of their structures, I suppose. Yeah, because I think it seems like if you look at like myths from other times, like, even some of those Germanic ones are not necessarily always about like listening to your parents, but it seems like there may have been a time in other cultures where we weren't obsessed with that kind of story. So it was not like all of human history until now that we were obsessed with scaring the shit out of your children, perhaps. I don't know. Like, there's not any Greek myths about like scaring the shit out of your kids, I don't feel like. Are there?
Well, no, because the Greek myths were all about who Zeus wanted to fuck in that particular story.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It was mostly about sex.
Yeah.
A lot more sex. A lot less parent-child relationship situations.
Yeah, the Greek myths were all much more adult. They weren't really meant as like kid stories. They were meant to explain how shit happened, and 90% of shit happened because Zeus decided to fuck something he wasn't supposed to be fucking.
Something.
And something. Definitely something.
Oh yeah, something. Like he was not species exclusive by any means.
That's true.
Yeah.
God. All right, well, that's a great...
Like, the whole story of Medusa, it's not because of Zeus, but it's, I think it was Ares? He went and essentially raped someone in Athena's temple, and because it happened in Athena's temple, and the woman who was raped by this god was the one who was punished because it happened in a temple. Like, it's a really fucked up story.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of reclaiming of the Medusa myth lately.
Oh, yeah.
In feminist circles.
Oh yeah, because it absolutely fucking deserves it. Like, like when you realize what Medusa went through to get where she was before Pericles came, like it's really fucked up that he goes and chops her head off. And like I've seen,
right?
That's the hero of
he's
the
the bad guy there.
He's the bad guy of the situation. Yeah, and so I've seen like opposite, like there was a statue someone carved of Medusa holding up Pericles' chopped off head.
Nice.
So, yeah. So, anyways, on that note.
So let's figure out how can we like reclaim Germanic myths for the children instead of being abused by their parents. How can we?
Right.
I mean, we could go the full 180 route and show children abusing their parents.
Getting their parents eaten by what's her name? I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I think if we can get rid of Black Peter, I think that would be a good start.
It's a good
That
start.
would be a very good
Are we
start.
all
That would be a
aware
very
of
good
this one?
start.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, let's get the blackface out.
I think that's dated.
Yeah.
Just a smidge, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that a lot of people did after the Black Lives Matter protests, I guess, to do something symbolic was they cut that scene from The Office, and they cut the episode of It's Always Sunny in which they do blackface, and like Netflix went through and a couple other companies went through and cut a bunch of scenes like that. And it's like, I mean, thanks, but also like, this isn't a lot of work on your part. Like, you could have also
aesthetic change.
Yeah, like you can feel good about yourself now and you can like feel like you did something, but like how much impact are you really having when you're a multi-million-dollar company and you're like, well, I'll remove a couple scenes from some shows. Like, thanks.
Yeah. That's like, I'm often not really fully on board with the leftist hate on that they have for liberals. But that's the thing that a lot of liberals seem to think is good enough. Or
yeah, it's good enough.
It's not materially changing anything, or it's not just structurally changing anything, but it makes it look better. We don't have blackface on TV anymore.
Right, and therefore we're right.
We fixed it. Yeah.
Right. And I don't even know, like, that's not even a thing anyone in BLM was asking for. Like, no one was asking for that. You know, and like,
I mean, yeah, blackface sucks. Don't do it. But
right. Like, but like, that wasn't the point. Like, it was just so far from the point. You know, sometimes people complain about like, well, this group didn't have like a set message. Like, what were they really asking for? And then when they do, people do things like, oh, you were asking for something entirely unrelated that has nothing to do with that? I'll do this other thing because it costs me almost nothing. Yeah. How would I do that? It's like, no, feels like sometimes it doesn't matter what you're specifically asking for, because if it costs them something, they're not going to do it anyway, whether in money or in power. So,
Yep, that's right.
But instead, we could complain about the protesters not having a coordinated message. So that would be easier, clearly.
That is what they prefer.
Get rid of something unrelated and then bitch about the protesters not having as coordinated of a message, even if they have a pretty coordinated message.
Or like the new anti-defund the police slogan like thing is like, oh, well, you can't just fix the world with a snappy slogan, right?
No one was suggesting you could.
Right.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Especially a slogan with more than one syllable or more than three syllables, you know, it's got to be like lock him up or like build that wall, you know, those slogans we can really get behind, you know, we can understand them. Like,
well, what was the one? Drill, baby, drill.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sarah Palin.
And they're more shoutable, you know, so really
they fit onto signs better.
Yeah, you got to get a little bit more creative with like if you're gonna have defund the police to a beat or something.
That's another thing.
There is no justice, no peace. Defund the police.
Hey,
I've heard that one.
It is pretty good.
You know, I will say, leftists are very good at protest chants.
Right.
Protest chants. Got it.
There's the creativity.
That's another thing that really pissed me off about the Capitol riot. Attempted insurrection. When you protest in DC, you are not allowed to have your protest signs on sticks. The sticks are considered weapons. You are only allowed to have signs that you hold with no stick or piece of wood or anything behind them. Like, that is a rule. Like, they will take your shit away and maybe arrest you if you come with a sign attached to a stick. But those people got to march around the Capitol all day.
With sticks,
with flags, with like spears on the end. A bunch
I
of
felt
them had.
like it was a show of, okay, this is what this group is getting away with, and this is what you're allowed to get away with. So keep that in mind. That's just what I felt, you know. But.
Oh shit. Well,
Okay.
I just got a battery running low message, so
Okay.
Yeah, we should probably wrap this up then.
I think so.
All right. You can find us at skeptarchy.com. Our Twitter is skeptarchypod. You can find us at facebook.com/skeptarchy or email us. We still don't have any. skeptarchy@gmail.com. Kevin's Twitter is
AncomPsychon.
Twitch.
And you can also find me on Twitch at Anarchist Laboratory.
I am at Hardcore Skeptic. And Corey Johnston, good luck.
Right.
I am More Cowbell on Twitter. I am Del on Earth on Facebook.
I have resurrected my Twitter account. Well, I'm about to. I've relearned my handle. I am E-Ray Standing, apparently.
E-Ray
yeah,
Standing.
So I'm going to start doing that again.
Bam.
And also Eric Ray Standing on Facebook, if you care to.
Perfect. All right. That's good. Thanks
Cool.
for
Well, it's
joining me.
good to see you guys again after 6 weeks, and
Yeah, it's good to have you back.
hopefully 2021 is as kick-ass for you guys as it has been for me.
Yeah. It's
So far,
early
so
yet.
good.
Or slightly less shitty than last year. We'll settle for that.
So
What is
far,
it
so good.
What is it I saw about the Capitol thing? It was December 37th, 2020.
Oh no.
2020's last hurrah.
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect.
All right.
Okay, well, good night, everybody.
Better.
I'm going to
Good night.